On July 11th, 2019, a tragic event would shatter that sense of tranquility, leaving the entire community in shock and disbelief. William Dubois Jr., a beloved 72-year-old grandfather and retired teacher who had devoted over 3 decades to educating children, was found brutally murdered in his own home. Known for his kindness and dedication to his students, Dubois was a cherished figure in the community, and his sudden and violent death would spark an investigation that revealed a shocking betrayal. This is the story of a crime fueled not just by hatred, but by deceit, manipulation, and a calculated plan that would ultimately uncover the darkest sides of a seemingly innocent neighbor. Where every unsolved mystery contains secrets that want to be revealed, step into the darkness and explore them with hidden truth. Don't hesitate to leave a like as an encouragement for us. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to update the most classic cases. William Dubois was a well-loved and respected teacher, having spent over 30 years shaping the minds of students and leaving a lasting impact on everyone he encountered. His dedication to education and his caring nature made him a beloved figure not only in his family, but also within the community. He was a man who had earned the trust and admiration of those around him, especially his neighbors, who often saw him as a steady and dependable presence. However, one day, the people who lived near Dubois began to notice something unusual. It had been several days since anyone had seen or heard from him, which was out of character for someone who was always active and engaged in the community. His absence didn't go unnoticed, and the neighbors who had grown accustomed to his friendly greetings and regular routines began to worry. Concerned for his well-being, they reached out to the local authorities, asking for a welfare check to ensure that everything was okay. The police responded promptly to the call, though no one could have anticipated the devastating discovery they would make when they arrived at Dubois' home. What was meant to be a routine check turned into a tragic scene that would forever change the lives of those who knew him. The absence of Dubois, which had initially seemed like a simple case of him being out of touch, now loomed over the neighborhood as a dark mystery waiting to be unraveled. When the police arrived at William Dubois' home, they were met with a scene that no one could have ever imagined. What was supposed to be a simple welfare check quickly turned into a chilling discovery that would haunt the community for years to come. The house was in disarray, as though it had been ransacked. Furniture was overturned, and personal belongings were scattered across the floor, giving the appearance of a violent struggle. It was clear that someone had been searching for something, whether it was money, valuables, or something else, but nothing could have prepared the officers for what they would find next. In the center of the chaos lay the lifeless body of William Dubois. The beloved teacher, who had spent his life educating and caring for others, was now a victim of brutal violence. He had been savagely beaten with a hammer, his body showing signs of a violent and prolonged assault. The police counted 27 distinct blows to his head and upper body. Each strike was a testament to the sheer brutality of the crime. His injuries were so severe that it was nearly impossible to comprehend the pain and terror he must have endured in his final moments. The horror of the scene was magnified by the realization that Dubois had not just been murdered in his own home, but had been subjected to a violent and calculated attack. The home, once a place of comfort and safety, now stood as a haunting reminder of the brutality that had taken place within its walls. There were no signs of forced entry, which suggested that the killer may have had some form of access to the home or had been led inside by Dubois himself, adding another layer of mystery and suspicion to the already unsettling situation. The investigators knew that they were dealing with a case far more complex and sinister than they had originally thought. A brutal murder had been committed within the very home where William Dubois had once lived a peaceful and fulfilling life. The tranquility of the home, which had once been a safe haven for the beloved teacher, was shattered by the violence that had unfolded within its walls. Every piece of evidence, every detail of the crime scene pointed to one undeniable truth. The murderer was not a stranger, but someone who had lived just steps away from Dubois, his own neighbor, Taylor Cynthia Elkins. Elkins had lived in the same quiet neighborhood for some time and was known to Dubois, though their relationship was not particularly close. She was a woman in her late 20s, seemingly blending into the background of the otherwise peaceful community. At first glance, she didn't stand out in any significant way, and to many, she appeared to be just another neighbor passing through the mundane motions of everyday life. However, as investigators began to piece together the details of Dubois's tragic death, they quickly discovered that Elkins's involvement in the crime was not only possible, but increasingly likely. Elkins had been in the vicinity of Dubois's home on the night of the murder, and it seemed that the two had some kind of interaction before the deadly attack. Though Elkins had initially denied any involvement, her story quickly unraveled under questioning. The authorities soon realized that she had lied about her connection to Dubois and the events that unfolded that night. Evidence began to surface that suggested she had entered Dubois' home, perhaps under the guise of friendship or even something more. The police began to track Elkins's movements, and it wasn't long before they uncovered the chilling truth. Not only had Elkins been in Dubois' home, but she had also stolen his car after the murder. The stolen vehicle, a 2013 Ford Focus, became a crucial piece of evidence, as it had a tracking system that led the authorities straight to Elkins. She had tried to claim that Dubois had given her the car, but her changing story quickly raised suspicions. As more details emerged, it became clear that Elkins's motives for the murder were rooted in something far more sinister than what she had initially let on. The shocking revelation that the killer was a neighbor, someone who had lived so close to Dubois, left the community in a state of disbelief. It was a betrayal that no one had seen coming. For those who had known Dubois, it was almost impossible to reconcile the image of the kind, gentle teacher with the brutal crime that had taken place so close to their homes. What had driven Elkins to commit such a heinous act? The answers to that question would soon unfold as investigators dug deeper into her past and her connection to the victim. As soon as the authorities discovered the horrifying crime scene and the body of William Dubois, they wasted no time in focusing their investigation on Taylor Cynthia Elkins. The evidence pointing to her as the prime suspect quickly became undeniable. It was as if the pieces of the puzzle were falling into place almost too easily, but the complexity of the case was far from over. The police arrested Elkins the same day they found Dubois' body, and her arrest set the stage for a series of twisted lies and manipulations that would unfold in the hours and days following. Elkins, when first confronted by the police, was far from forthcoming. She initially claimed that Dubois had given her his 2013 Ford Focus as a gift. According to her, the car was an offering of goodwill from Dubois, and she insisted that she had done nothing wrong. However, it didn't take long for investigators to see through this narrative. Her explanation seemed far too convenient, especially given the fact that the car was missing from Dubois' home, and Elkins had no plausible reason for having taken it. The authorities were not convinced by her story, and they pushed harder, determined to uncover the truth. As the investigation deepened, Elkins's story began to unravel at an alarming rate. The more she spoke, the more contradictions emerged in her statements. The detectives soon discovered that Elkins had not only stolen Dubois' car, but her story about receiving the vehicle as a gift was a fabrication. There was no record of any such exchange, no proof that Dubois had ever intended to give her the car. Furthermore, the police were able to track the vehicle using its built-in tracking system, which led them directly to Elkins. The more the police delved into her background and her relationship with Dubois, the clearer it became that Elkins's words had little to no truth behind them. She tried to cover her tracks by claiming that Dubois had given her the car in exchange for sexual favors. But again, this story fell apart when investigators looked into the details. Each version of her tale seemed more absurd than the last, and it became increasingly evident that she was trying to manipulate the authorities to avoid suspicion. But the evidence didn't lie. Elkins was caught in her web of lies, and there was no escaping the harsh reality of the crime she had committed. What began as a simple welfare check had quickly escalated into a full-blown investigation into a neighbor's brutal betrayal. Elkins's lies not only made her appear more suspicious, but also made it clear that she had no intention of taking responsibility for the murder of Dubois. With each passing moment, it became more apparent that the real story behind Dubois' death was far darker than anyone could have imagined, and the truth was only just beginning to emerge. With the stolen Ford Focus now at the center of the investigation, investigators were able to use its built-in tracking system to trace the movements of the vehicle. This tracking technology proved to be a game changer in the case. As soon as the police activated the tracking feature, they were able to pinpoint the location of the car, which led them directly to Taylor Cynthia Elkins. What initially seemed like a desperate attempt to flee quickly turned into a series of critical discoveries for the investigators. As the car's location was tracked, the police followed the signals to a nearby area where Elkins was spotted driving the vehicle. However, she wasn't alone. Accompanying her in the car were two other individuals who were later identified as acquaintances of Elkins. The authorities acted swiftly and pulled the car over, detaining all three individuals for questioning. The presence of these two people in the car raised even more questions, and their involvement in the case began to pique the interest of the police. At first, Elkins tried to stick to her fabricated story, but the presence of the two individuals only added further layers of complexity to her explanation. The two acquaintances, once questioned, provided crucial information that would help unravel the truth. It soon became clear that Elkins had not acted alone, and her version of events was beginning to crumble under the weight of the evidence. The two individuals testified against Elkins, confirming that they had been with her at the time of the crime and when she was in possession of Dubois's car. Their testimonies painted a clear picture of Elkins's actions following the murder and offered a chilling insight into the sequence of events that led to Dubois' tragic death. As the investigation progressed, the police realized that the stolen car had played a pivotal role not only in tracking down Elkins, but also in uncovering key details of the crime. The tracking system had essentially mapped out her movements, providing the investigators with a clear timeline of her actions and confirming that she was the one responsible for taking Dubois's life. The connection between Elkins and the murder was becoming undeniable, and with the cooperation of her acquaintances, the full scope of her involvement was beginning to emerge. What started as a welfare check had now turned into a full-blown investigation that revealed a trail of lies, deceit, and calculated actions. The authorities had successfully used technology to their advantage, and they were now one step closer to bringing justice to the victim and his grieving family. As the investigation continued, Elkins's friends played a crucial role in revealing the truth. One of them testified that Elkins had tried to sell Dubois' car, while another admitted that Elkins confessed to killing Dubois, though she didn't provide a clear reason for the attack. This confession added to the chilling nature of the crime, suggesting the murder was the result of a sudden, violent outburst. Forensic evidence further linked Elkins to the scene, with police confirming she had entered Dubois' home, ransacked his belongings, and attacked him with a hammer, striking him 27 times. The brutality of the attack was undeniable, and the investigation made it clear that Elkins had planned to rob Dubois, but the situation escalated into violence. With her friends' testimonies and physical evidence, Elkins's involvement in the murder became undeniable, and the search for justice was moving forward. Eventually, Elkins admitted to killing William Dubois, claiming that the murder occurred during an uncontrollable argument. However, the true motive behind Dubois' tragic death was far darker than a mere dispute. Elkins confessed that she had been extorting Dubois, demanding money and other valuables from him, and that the situation spiraled out of control when Dubois refused to comply with her demands. The robbery, which had started as a calculated attempt to exploit Dubois, quickly escalated into violence when she attacked him with a hammer in a fit of rage. Elkins also revealed that she had stolen several items from Dubois's home during the assault, including his car, which she later attempted to sell. The entire situation unfolded in a series of desperate and selfish actions that ultimately led to the brutal murder of a man who had never done anything to harm her. Despite her confession, Elkins showed no remorse for her actions. Throughout the entire process, she never apologized to Dubois's family or provided a clear explanation for why she had taken the life of an innocent man. Her lack of empathy and refusal to offer any real explanation for the murder only added to the horror of the crime. Dubois had been a beloved figure in the community, a retired teacher with a long history of positively impacting his students' lives. For his family, friends, and neighbors, the loss was incomprehensible. Elkins's cold and calculating actions shattered their sense of safety and trust, leaving them to grapple with the painful reality that someone they had seen as a neighbor was capable of such unimaginable violence. Her inability to offer any meaningful remorse left a bitter taste for those who hoped to understand the reasoning behind such a senseless and brutal act. The case against Taylor Elkins quickly moved to trial, but before it could officially begin, she made a surprising decision. Rather than continuing to fight the charges, Elkins chose to plead guilty to first-degree murder, sparing the court and Dubois's family from the emotional toll of a lengthy trial. By entering this plea, she effectively avoided a potentially harsher sentence, such as the death penalty, which could have been a possibility had the case gone to trial. As a result, Elkins was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to 40 years in prison. Under the terms of her sentence, she would be required to serve at least 70% of her term, which meant she would have to spend approximately 28 years behind bars before being eligible for parole. This decision, while providing some closure for Dubois's family, left many still grappling with the deep loss of a beloved grandfather, teacher, and community member. Throughout the entire process, Elkins never expressed any remorse or gave a clear explanation as to why she took the life of an innocent man. Despite the gravity of her crime, she offered no apology to Dubois's family, which made the outcome of the trial all the more difficult to accept for those who had known and loved Dubois. The sentence brought some justice, but it did little to heal the emotional wounds left by her violent and senseless actions. During the sentencing hearing, Susan Dubois, William Dubois' wife, made a heartfelt statement that resonated deeply with those present in the courtroom. She said,
"I don't hate her, I can't hate her. I believe in God, and He has helped our family get through this."
Her words, filled with grace and faith, reflected the strength of character she and her family had maintained despite the unimaginable tragedy that had befallen them. However, despite the opportunity to show remorse or offer an explanation, Elkins remained silent. She did not apologize for taking the life of a beloved husband, father, and grandfather, nor did she provide any insight into why she had committed such a heinous act. Her refusal to express any kind of regret or to offer an explanation for her actions added to the sorrow and anger that Dubois's family and friends felt. For many, the lack of empathy from Elkins served as a stark reminder of the senselessness of the crime. While Susan Dubois found strength in her faith and chose to let go of hatred, the absence of an apology from Elkins left a lasting impact on the grieving family, who would forever carry the pain of losing their loved one in such a brutal and heartless manner. This case is not just a story of crime, but a sobering reminder of the cruelty and calculation that can lie hidden within a person. William Dubois, a man who had dedicated his entire life to serving his community as a teacher and role model, found himself tragically betrayed by someone he had once considered a neighbor. His death was not the result of a random act of violence, but rather the culmination of manipulation, greed, and deceit. The murder of Dubois was a devastating act that shattered the lives of his family, friends, and all who knew him. His death left a deep wound in the hearts of those who loved him, a wound that could never fully heal. His legacy, which had once been one of kindness, teaching, and love, was tainted by the senselessness of his brutal end. Once again, this story reminds us that evil can come from those we trust, and that justice will eventually find its way. No matter who we are or who we think we can get away with, justice will never stop searching for the truth. As we reflect on the tragic case of William Dubois and the brutal betrayal of Taylor Elkins, we must reflect on the darker sides of human nature: deception, greed, and violence. How do you feel about the motives behind this senseless crime? Will true justice ever be served for a life so tragically taken? And what does this case say about the trust we place in those around us? Leave a comment below. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this story and want to dive deeper into more intriguing mysteries, be sure to subscribe to Hidden Truths and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update.